to be
Yeah.
continued.
Yes.
Dr. Daphnie Sicre, how are you? Welcome. So good to meet you, and so wonderful that you find the time to join the Roby Theater Company and usher in the 2021 Spring Playwrights Lab session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, we know very little about you, and we'd like to know a little more. Talking before, well, something that really interests me, and it really doesn't have much to do with the work we're doing, except it keeps you healthy. What is that about the triathlon?
Yeah, I'm a triathlete. And
Good.
which means, for those who might not know the sport, it's a sport where you swim, bike, and run. And I'm actually an Ironman. And that's like the ultimate triathlon that you aim to reach for when you start doing triathlons. And so that's a distance of 140.6 miles in less than 17 hours. And so you
Oh,
have to literally train for like 6 months to actually attempt to try to finish the finish line. I completed my first Ironman. So I used the combination of training for the Ironman and the discipline of that to help me finish my dissertation and defend. And so I became like Dr. Ironman Sicre, since I was able to do both in 1 week, it was amazing. It was one of the highlights of my life. I can tell you that right now.
I can imagine. Congratulations. Most
Thank
people
you.
dissertations. Iron Man is not for Iron Woman. It's not for everybody. This is
No.
an elite sport, isn't it? It's a very elite sport in the sense that of what it takes to actually do it. I mean, in that
Yeah.
sense of
It's
the
determination. It's all
discipline that it
about,
will take.
yes, exactly. That's exactly what it's about. Um, and just in heart, you have to have heart to want to finish. And
Hmm.
I had trained so well that I actually finished it in um, in 14 hours and 52 minutes. And I couldn't believe it. I thought I was going to barely make it. Before the race starts, I was like, I think I'm going to barely make the cutoff. And then as I was racing, I was like, I'm doing great. Of course,
But the cutoff is 17 hours, so you were
yeah.
2 hours and 6 minutes
Oh,
ahead
more,
ahead of
more, more, because it was 14 and, 14. Yeah. So
it.
more. So for me,
Again,
it was doing,
congratulations.
yeah.
That kind of discipline segues right into your discipline as a dramaturg, director,
Yep.
the whole idea of the theater discipline that
Yep.
comes along with writing.
Yes.
Writing.
Yes.
Now, most writers or playwrights have their own system
Mhm.
that probably changes with each project and
Mhm.
collaboration. But that kind of staying power really serves you in your work.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother was a writer. She published 2 books. And there goes my dog.
Mm.
And I remember she used to tell me when I was working on my dissertation, she's like, 15 minutes a day, Daphne, 15 minutes a day. And she was the kind of person who would wake up in the morning and write and spend like an hour writing. And so same thing, like you have to, whatever you're writing, whatever you're creating, you have to develop that discipline where you're coming in and you're saying, okay, this is my goal. I have this chapter. I have this scene. I have this 10-minute play. I have this one act, and you need to write it, and and you got to go back to it every day too. It's not
Mm.
something that you just write and then you're like, oh, I'm done. I mean, some people are very prolific and they can do that, but that's rare. You have to find that. You're absolutely right. You have to find the discipline to find the time to write it, then rewrite it, then relook at it, and keep
And
working.
you're bringing that process
I hope so. That's what I
to
hope
the
so.
lab.
I hope
Uh,
so. I
yeah.
hope to bring in that. Yes.
You know, one of the things over the last 26 years that the Roby Theater Company has been around, and our Playwrights Lab has been in
Mhm.
operations for about the last 18 of those years with various incarnations.
Mhm.
The last being with Dylan Southard, who was with us for 15 years and just a wonderful guy and certainly a capable dramaturg, etc. And when I went to look, and when Dylan left, and when I went to look for another dramaturg, I put out a call, and I say about seven. There were seven responses. Three of them were very, very qualified, and then there was you, your credentials, what you have a passion for, what you bring to the table. So I'm very happy for that and looking very much forward. Our playwrights, you know, we have uh, about six playwrights that have been with us literally for years, and they're looking forward
I
to
can't
working with you.
wait. I can't wait. I really can't.
So we're in good shape. What I want to ask about the structure of the workshop. I know you have probably a syllabus in mind, so to speak, because we talked a little bit about that. But until the playwrights are in place and you get to know each and every one of those playwrights and their work, things will alter once you get privy to all of that. But the discipline, the goal orientation,
Mhm.
that is, I think, so valuable because we hadn't done that a lot. In
Mhm.
some ways, yes, but the way you've spoken about it, I'm looking forward to seeing some plays at the end of it. I'm
Oh,
looking forward
pressure.
to at least to see, or at least to be seeing some first and second drafts from the playwright. So it's very exciting because this is the genesis of the whole theater process. It starts with the playwright, doesn't it?
And I love new work. I love exploring new work. I love the possibility of new work. I love what new work can bring to the table, how it contribute to the field, how it can change the field. I love that feeling of having read the first draft of a play and then
Mm.
years later sitting at a theater and seeing it, and seeing and just and remembering that first draft and being like, that wasn't in that first draft, but oh my God, that's amazing. And and seeing the different interpretations and seeing these plays grow, it just brings me so much joy. I don't think I have any other words to explain it.
Mm.
And just being able to work with writers, and you're right, every writer's different. Every writer has a completely different style, different methodology, different pace. And so how do you work, with each of these writers to get them to where they need to be and to let go of fear? Because that's
Mm.
what inhibits us from sharing our work, from putting our work out there. And I've written a couple plays. I haven't done that in years, but I know what it's like sitting opening night and seeing people's reaction, but the fear that comes before, that moment when someone, you're anticipating, are they going to clap, are they not going to clap?
Mhm.
And as a writer, you start feeling that fear from your first draft because that's your little baby, and you don't know how people are going to take it, and where is it going to go, and what's going to happen. And sometimes that fear can inhibit the process of whatever you're creating. And so to be able to help these writers achieve their goals, A, set goals, B, achieve goals, 3, overcome any fears, and let's start getting some new work.
Yes,
Start
yes.
producing some new stuff.
You know, one of the things that I found over the years, the Playwrights Lab provides the playwright is a community.
Yes.
Because usually the writers are on their own. They're in their room firing up their laptop or with the legal pad, trying to figure out how to tell the story they want to tell. And they're on their own, solo, isolated. all most of the time,
Yeah.
because one probably needs that to figure it out. What the Playwrights Lab does is create a whole community
Mm-hmm.
of of writers that can bounce off of each other
Yep.
and still keep their own singular voice, but have somewhere to go where like minds are talking about some of the same principles, some of the same ideas.
Mhm.
And that has been of a real value to the playwrights. And I'm
It,
sure you've seen it in your history as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it
I
creates
look forward to
accountability.
it. I usually attend a lot of the workshops with one ear cocked for it, where I learn so much,
Uh-huh.
you know, and I'm usually doing something in the office. But I've always got one ear cocked to the conversation, because the conversations are so inspiring. It just, for those of us who are wired
Mhm.
like we're wired, for this whole creative process that, yeah, some people can't even fathom. This is valuable, valuable, and certainly extremely exciting stuff.
I can't. I'm so honored. I am so humbled, and I'm so excited at the same time. This is something I have wanted to be able to work with a theater and be able to provide a service in this way for a long time. And while I was working on my dissertation, I could only work as a dramaturg individually because I had to get my own writing done. But now that that's out of the way, you know,
Mhm.
I I
Mhm.
can I can actually work with other writers, and I can actually, and it's just really exciting for me.
You know, dramaturg.
Hmm.
There's so many people, including those in theaters, usually young people that have just started, to understand what it takes to want to be in, well, what it takes to be in the theater, to be an active artist in the theater, what that takes, because usually there's notions of other things,
Hmm.
notions of grandeur, but all of the work that leads up to an opening night and the curtain going up and our audience seeing that quote finished work, they are not usually aware of what it takes from day one to make it happen from the page to the stage.
Yep,
And most do not even know what a dramaturg is.
yep, you're absolutely right.
They do not know what the definition, or if they've heard of a dramaturg, they have an incorrect definition. Usually, you often, too often, and that's folks in theater as well. The best definition I ever heard of a dramaturg was someone who asked the right
Question.
questions
Yeah, yep, yep,
of that playwright.
yep.
As opposed to the popular belief, they help them write the play. They actually write. No, that's not a dramaturg's job, and it's, yeah.
It's about asking
So
questions, and
questions.
you know what's interesting is that I have worked with playwrights that they don't know what to do when you're asking them the questions. And I remember I always have to have a pre-meeting with my playwrights and say that I've worked with individually and say, okay, I'm the kind of dramaturg who's going to ask you questions. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I was like, when I look at your piece, I'm going to have a ton of questions for you. Now, you're the writer. You get to decide if you want to answer these questions or not. You get to decide if you want to expand on these questions or not. I'm like, I'm just providing you the questions for you to think of.
Mhm.
And they're like, wow. And sometimes, especially if they're younger, they might be sometimes overwhelmed because do I answer all these questions in my writing? And I'm like, I don't know. Do you want to? Do you feel it's necessary? Does it work for the story? Is that what
Mhm.
you want to see in your story? And and sometimes providing these questions to make them think about what they want to accomplish with the story and where the story is going, and are they following whatever arc they've determined to follow, whatever structure they've decided to create, um, or break, because sometimes you can break a structure. And so I love asking questions, and I don't
Mhm.
need all the answers, but it's really interesting how some people don't know what to do with questions. In some of my historic classes that I teach, theater history classes, I ask questions, and the students are like, "Well, why aren't you giving us the answer?" And I'm like, "Well, we're gonna have to talk about the answer." I'm like, "And what do you think?" And then it's all of a sudden like, "Oh, yeah. What do you think?"
It's
And
your
so,
play. It's
yeah,
your story,
yep.
right?
And so I love this notion of questions. I love asking questions. And then I also love looking at plays through this lens of they're going to be staged. And so some of the questions I have to ask you deal with the way that you're staging the play. Can that be staged or not? Um, how are you bringing that to life?
Mm.
I remember working with a playwright who there was a scene missing. And I was like, I really felt it. And the actors, we were in this process of the actors were reading it during a rehearsal. He was providing, it was a workshop, a week-long workshop of this play. And the actors felt a scene was missing. I felt a scene was missing. And I asked him, I said, I was like, why don't you have a scene about this? And he's like, oh, because I was told that you can't really do that on the stage. And I was like, oh, no. What? You didn't put that in because someone told you you can't do that on the stage? I was like, well, you're the writer. Think about how can you bring that? I was like, as a director, you could do blah, 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 blah. And he was like, oh my goodness, I could actually bring that to the stage. I said, yes, yes, you can. I was like, it's the job of the director to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are some plays that people write, especially again, if they're younger. And I've worked a lot more with younger playwrights. So I'm looking forward to working with playwrights who are more seasoned. And, but the younger playwrights sometimes don't know how to they have an idea, and what their idea is, it's basically a TV show, and they're writing it like a TV show. They're not writing it like a play. They're not writing it for the stage. And so sometimes you do find the difference between them.
Well, we have to guard against that in Los Angeles because,
Yep.
again, most people come here to build careers in television and
Yep.
film. And even if they're weaned in theater, have a passion for theater and love theater and need theater, it's a tough road because one, it's very difficult to make a living, especially as a playwright, right?
Yeah.
And whew, yeah, one usually has one eye on that audition or that interview or that meeting, and so it often is about. I think I want to test the waters in the theater and get my story honed there and then do that adaptation for film or television. And there's nothing wrong with all of that. I The creative process is the creative process, and are so many things that are born even in mistakes. In fact, most things are born in mistakes,
And
trial and error,
I will share
writing and
this.
rewriting.
Something that I think it's been really beautiful to see, especially in the last, like I would say 5, 8 years, with like really, really good playwrights are now starting to help write TV shows. They're now some of the writers. I have probably like 6 or 7 friends of mine who are writing for TV shows, but they didn't start writing for TV shows. They started writing plays, and they have X amount of plays that they've written, and their plays are superb. And it's
Mhm.
because of their writing and their writing being so good that they were not hired to now write for TV shows, and which is
They
not.
hone that discipline in the theater, though, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. They started with that discipline in the theater. They were writing for the theater. They were telling stories for the stage, and their writing was so good that people caught on. And now, and you see that in TV shows. You see that in the character development, because that they learn that writing for the stage. They learn that writing for theater, and again, the really good writer is able to continue writing the plays for the stage and still be hired, as a front runner and
Mhm.
writing for TV shows. And so, it's possible, but it's harder when you're trying to come in from a screenplay to theater, because there's so many, if you have not grown up in this world of theater and immersed yourself, it's different. And you
Mm,
have to think differently. You have to see the work differently, because it's read differently when it's live than it is when
mhm,
it's on TV. We
mm,
don't have any edits. We don't have any do-overs. We just have to do it and make it happen on stage.
mm. Yeah, a lot to consider.
Yeah,
Well, we're going to have a great season.
I hope so. I
Oh
can't
yeah.
wait.
Oh yeah. We can, we can do no wrong. Yeah, that's what I always tell all the artists. You know, everything is possible.
Mm,
Don't say no. Say yes. No closes the door. Yes keeps the door open. You can always discard, or store something that isn't usable for this project. Put it on the back burner. You'll find a place for it. You know.
yep.
So this is wonderful. I want to thank you again and welcome again, Dr. Sicre. And we're going to have some fun too.
I hope
Yeah.
so. I hope so. I think
Oh, yeah.
writing is fun. Writing prompts and exercises, it should be fun. Um, you know, it should be exciting. It should be nervous. It should be like, and
Mm.
all of those things. And so I really hope I can bring that excitement and that fun into the classes and the discussions and the readings and all of that. That's my hopes. I really hope I can achieve
I'm
that.
sure it will all happen. It will all happen. And so we'll look forward to the 30th of this month.
Yes.
And I will see you